Marijuana and its use have been a hot topic for decades now. Even though it is not one of those taboo topics anymore, it is still a cause of fiery debates across the world. In this speech, I want to touch on a very sensitive subject, legalization of cannabis and why it is a good thing to do. I know that drugs are a complex topic for many, and almost everyone has a strong opinion about them. However, in this speech, I am giving you some facts and statements that will probably change your mind about the whole validation process of such a well-known drug. It is common knowledge that drugs are generally bad for you, whether they have some benefits or not. Trying to find justification for smoking weed is like trying to convince yourself that you do not need the social life. You might be able to do that, but it is not going to last. However, it makes perfect sense to legalize marijuana, and I am convinced that it will be happening more and more in the next few years. I actually believe that it is not legalizing the drug that puts people and their health in danger, but it is glamorizing and commercializing it that is responsible for so many drug addicts. First of all, I want to actually tell you why marijuana is generally legalized or decriminalized. Whom does it help, and why would doctors actually prescribe it? The human body already makes chemicals that are similar to the ones used in marijuana, which affect pain, inflammation, and other processes going on in the body. Marijuana can sometimes help those natural chemicals work better and possibly relieve pain, spasms, nausea, and anxiety. That is what makes marijuana more desirable for patients suffering from certain conditions that also increases the demand for it. Yet, marijuana is not an FDA-approved drug and is not monitored the same way. So there are certain side effects that have not been studied well enough yet. Nevertheless, there is a sufficient amount of evidence that shows marijuana to be superior to other drugs with a similar effect. Therefore, I think those who can benefit from careful usage of such a thing should be able to obtain it without possible legal issues. Nonetheless, according to John F. Kelly, about 9% of the patients using cannabis for both healing and recreational purposes end up having an addiction. This is probably what makes the problem of legalizing marijuana so controversial. On one hand, it is a drug that has been proven to relieve symptoms of severe diseases like HIV, cancer, and Crohn's disease. On the other hand, it is still a drug that can cause addiction, and legalization of such a thing could affect the drug problem among those who are not in need of it for medical purposes. It goes without saying that marijuana could be abused like any other drug that is abused, and once it becomes widely available, and it is absolutely impossible to control, but that abuse can be minimalized with strict laws and compliance. Here comes the question of legalizing marijuana for recreational purposes. It is not a big surprise that the more available the drug becomes, the more people are going to be trying to obtain it and use it. The 2013 survey conducted in the United States showed that the number of people using marijuana is growing, as the availability and legalization processes are taking steps further. However, there is a growing number of doctors who believe that the legalization of this drug is inevitable, and as weird as it sounds, a natural occurrence. For example, according to John Kelly, the same thing happened with alcohol in 1933 in the United States when it was finally legalized. Evidently, there are no real benefits to alcohol, and yet it was legalized, despite the obvious consequences, only for recreational purposes. From that point of view, it makes perfect sense to legalize things like cannabis. Since it is used for recreational purposes all over the world anyway, it has some medical properties, and it is going to be used whether it is legal or not. That is just something you cannot argue. John F. Kelly also considers legalization of such a controversial drug without commercializing it to be the best solution to the problem you can find. Yes, there are some nuances to doing that, but if you look at the advantages, they will definitely outweigh the disadvantages. Making such a decision and making cannabis legal definitely means taking a strong risk. But something should be done, and I think we have seen enough evidence that prohibition of it just does not work. Overall, I am certain that since marijuana is quite widely used in the medical field and it is well known the results it gives to the patients who have tried a countless number of alternative treatments with no results, it only makes sense to legalize that drug use and come to terms with it. With legalizing any drug and making it more available, it will also be impossible to restrict those who want the drug for non-medical purposes. It has also been proven that people always find a way to get what they want. So then why not control the quality and distribution of marijuana, rather than try and prevent the inevitable use of it? Obviously, such things as cannabis should not be made an easily available over-the-counter medication and should be subject to some strict laws to control it. In any case, as I've already mentioned, it is not the legalization or decriminalization of marijuana that adds the most to the drug problem, but it is the commercialization and glamorization of it that increases the popularity of the drug overall and makes it more appealing for those who know very little about its possible side effects. Younger generations should also be taught about the way drugs and other substances work, and that I think is the responsibility of every educational institution. They give you sex education, so why not give some good information about the drug use and its consequences rather than make it a forbidden fruit? I believe that if the whole legalization process is done properly, we can avoid many problems regarding drug abuse. I believe that it is only a question of time until marijuana becomes available and completely legal across the world. Thus, if we prepare for that, we can limit the issues of marijuana and concentrate on all of its benefits.